who's as adamant about his or her position as I am about mine, whom you think is sharp. Seriously, we know that. And another thing, we heard him say that... Hey sports fans, Larry Elder here with another edition of And Another Thing. This is edition number 42. I want to welcome all the new Eldorados. If you want to become an Eldorado and you are not one, shame on you. I've got Eldorados in Shanghai. I've got Eldorados in Bangladesh. I've got Eldorados in Compton. Go to LarryElder.com, sign up, fill out the form. You get a free copy of Michael and Me. It's a feature-length documentary, a pro-Second Amendment documentary, where we confront the director, Michael Moore, the anti-gun director, Michael Moore, and we ask him how often Americans use guns every year to defend themselves. We know how often Americans use guns for illegal purposes and how often Americans use guns for accidental reasons and that result in death or tragedy. How often do Americans use firearms to defend themselves? Let's compare the two. I asked him that 3 times, and 3 times he said, well, you have to get the DVD to find out. Now to the show. I want to show you something. This is the front page copy of today's LA Times, and it says, Brown wants a minimum wage boost. Brown, of course, referring not to his pigmentation, but to the name of the governor of California, one Jerry Brown. He wants to increase the minimum wage. California's minimum wage is already higher than the federal minimum wage. Federal minimum wage is $7.25. The California minimum wage is $8. They want to raise it to $9 next year and then $10 the year after that, so that the minimum wage will go up, what's that, around 30% or so. Do we have to do this again? How many times do we have to go over this? The minimum wage was first imposed in 1938. The first minimum wage was 25 cents. If that minimum wage kept up with inflation, it would be not $10, not $12, not $15, but $4.07. What they always do is they find the minimum wage, I think around 1968, when it was higher than what it would have been had it just tracked inflation, and then they pick up inflation from there. So it gives you the impression that from the very beginning, had minimum wage kept up with inflation, it would be at $10. Not true at all, because we jacked up minimum wage beyond inflation a couple times, and the year that they like the most is the year in the 60s, where if you kept minimum wage pace with minimum wage at that point, it would be $10. But if you want to be honest and say from the inception of minimum wage, if it had kept up with inflation, it would be X. The X would be $4.07, not $10. The other thing is this. Recently, Apple just announced their new iteration of the 5 phone. So you have that, and then you have this. Accusation by Michael Moore that capitalism is evil. He says capitalism is evil, and you can't regulate evil. I mention that because Bono, the rock star, the one who's raised all that money to fight HIV and AIDS in third world countries, he recently gave a speech at Georgetown. Let me tell you what he said. He said, wow, rock star, pushing capitalism. He was almost embarrassed. But he's not a fool. And he said that my years of experience have taught me something, and that capitalism will lift far more people out of poverty than aid ever will. He said aid was stopgap. Ultimately, however, capitalism is the best way of rising people up. I remember watching Milton Friedman say the same thing almost verbatim on the Donahue show, the old Donahue show. So now you have a left-wing rocker who started out feeling probably the same way that Michael Moore did. Otherwise, he wouldn't say, well, imagine this, I'm almost embarrassed, a rocker, blah, 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 which shows you he didn't always feel this way. I hope you enjoyed this small excerpt. If you want to see the full video, got to be in Eldorado. Go to my website, LarryElder.com, log in, fill out the form. It'll cost you about $4.75 a month, or about the price of a mocha frappuccino latte at your favorite coffee house. As you can tell, I don't like coffee. I'm a tea drinker. See you next time.